What if I told you that your currency could be devalued by 40%? Well, the Federal Reserve has stated that they will do this if necessary. What do I mean by necessary? I will give that to you today, the documented facts as to what the Federal Reserve has actually said. In this video, we're going to look at a few aspects of the economy and what's happening exactly, and you gotta stay through this video to get all the pieces because I'm gonna connect the dots right here and now. My name is David Gutierrez, and I have been doing this for well over a decade. I bring you the latest and greatest information. I spend the hours a day so that you don't have to. Let's begin by looking at the Federal Reserve. First things first. The Federal Reserve is sending mixed signals. That's what this is really about. With all of SVB, the bank crisis, the market is confused as to whether the Fed is tightening or easing. We try to follow what they're going to do, and right now the market doesn't know which way to follow the Fed. This is exactly what they've been programmed to do for so long, and yet the Federal Reserve is doing what maybe somebody might do. They're going on a date with somebody and they're ghosting them. They're not answering the phone call. Then they're texting and then they're not responding back. What's going on? What's the deal? Let's grow up and let's get to the message, right? Are we going to do it? Or are we going to not do it? You know, you use your imagination what we're talking about here. Okay. But then we bring ourselves into the pages of history back to 2002 and we get this speech. I classify this as the most important speech in Federal Reserve history. I get a question about this every single time. If you want to find this speech, the link will be in the description under the sources. But you can search online for Fed Bernanke speech 2002. You will find it. Here we have it. I want to show you this, okay? Directly from the speech itself. I am confident that the Fed would take whatever means necessary to prevent significant deflation in the United States and, moreover, that the U.S. Central Bank, in cooperation with other parts of the government, as needed, has sufficient policy instruments to ensure that any deflation that might occur would be both mild and brief. Do you understand what he's saying here? He's saying under all conditions, we are going to print money and we are going to devalue the currency as a result. That's what happens. They admit this. And we will make sure that deflation doesn't happen. You know how I think that they will not allow deflation to happen? Let me read you the title of this speech. Deflation, making sure it, quote, doesn't happen here. Like, I mean, you can't be any more specific than that. He literally called that's the speech he said. I mean, come on. The example of the 40% that I give you at the the start of this video, he's referring specifically to what happened in 1933. So he covers that in here, saying specifically that they devalued the currency of 40% and, kind of suggests that they'll do anything, and that's the example that he's using. So it could be more than 40%. But he's saying, look at what we did. That was fantastic. It was necessary. We did it. We made it happen. As long as deflation is not persistent. So knowing this information, you know that the policy is inflation. There could be some deflation for sure, but the central banks are going to react accordingly. And as a result of that, you know that. Ben Bernanke said it. It's in black and white right here. You know that information. Where does that bring us? Well, we'll talk more about that. How does that sound? Will you stay with me? Let's go. Now, I wanted to show you something because if you look at what's happening with, in this case, the Bank of England, they look at what they have done. And in my opinion, it has been quite terrible, to say the least, because of their idea that they can do anything, including price controls. Price controls. What they talked about here is essentially the fact that they want to get the interest rates to be higher than what they thought they would have needed initially. That's what this is all about. The page had refreshed. Anyway, here we go. So essentially looking at a higher rate than needed. What does that mean? Slower growth. That's all. Same thing in the UK as in the US as in other places. They need higher interest rates in order to push this along. Britain is getting so desperate to tame inflation, it's talking about food price caps. When you encounter price controls, wage, all these different manipulations that they do, you just create these distortions, and that's never a good thing. What's going to happen if you're a farmer, if you're a producer, manufacturer, whatever, and they're saying you cannot sell that product? Let's just pick anything. Bananas, okay? You cannot sell your bananas for more than, we'll make up another number, $1 a pound. And somebody says, okay, but it's costing me $1.50 to produce that, to package it, to get it to the customer. So I'm going to lose 50 cents on each pound. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So I have two options at this point. I can entirely forego my business. I can shut it down and I can just simply pack up and move on. Maybe I can just feed myself with that. Or I can say, well, maybe if I can't sell it domestically, maybe there's a loophole, I can sell it internationally. So now I'm not feeding the people of my own country, I'm selling this abroad. Do you see a problem with this? These price controls are never going to resolve an issue, even in the medium term. Maybe in the short term, maybe. But as the farmers, as these manufacturers, these suppliers, they start feeling the price increases, they can't deal with it, they're going to say, forget it, I'm packing up. So you might not like it. You might say, no, that's not fair, or they shouldn't be doing this and that. But these businesses cannot be all run by the government. Some people want the government to run every single business, have control over every business, and like they do in China, have people established in big businesses so that they can make sure that the government policies are dictated all the way down the line. It's not a way that is the most beneficial. Okay? The most beneficial way is to actually allow prosperity and freedom. And what they're doing here is not going to resolve it. If you print trillions of dollars or pounds, you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems. If you're going to, all this relief, remember the whole relief funding and everything like this, you're just going to give to anybody who signs a form. You're going to give them billions of dollars because that's what happened. How many businesses do you know? You can put it in the comments below. How many businesses do you know? Maybe you work for those companies that didn't need that funding at all. They took the funding and it was forgiven. That funding was forgiven. Oh, there's billions and billions and billions of it. That was your taxpayer dollars. That's just the way I see it, okay? It is a concern as far as like the way that I'm looking at this, okay? You can't manage that. Now we took a look at the next part of this. You want to know what's going to happen? You want to see it for yourself? Look, the Fed funds rates. You can see this throughout the cycles. Just pay attention. Fed funds rate, 1970 up until today, every time we hit a peak in the cycle, a crisis follows. It's a simple matter of fact. Is this time different? I don't know. If you go on Reddit, I went on that website a couple times. Oh yeah, this time is different. Who else says it? All these YouTube gurus and everything. When they go into a cycle, they are aiming to create a problem. But it's just, I know that people don't like to hear that, so I'll just back off of that. Here we go. There are emerging signs that the U.S. labor market may finally be softening as tighter credit conditions for small businesses and declining corporate margins start to affect hiring decisions. The U.S. manufacturing sector may already be in a recession. So the point here is, if you look at what's going on in the economy, there are some real telltale signs that there are problems, that there are established problems right in the economy now. We don't have to look for a future date. It all depends on how we measure it. This happens to be another way. Gross domestic income, also known as GDI, suggests the US is in a recession right now. So I'm going to show you this chart, but I'm going to explain the GDI. GDI and GDP are two slightly different measures of a nation's economic activity. So GDI counts what all participants in the economy make or, quote, take in, wages, profits, taxes. GDP counts the value of what the economy produces, goods, services, and technology. One of the core concepts of macroeconomics is that income equals spending, which means that the GDI will be the same as GDP in an economy at equilibrium. But guess what? We don't have that today. We're not in an equilibrium, that's for sure. And you measure that looking at this chart, and it is in the negative. So it is showing us a recession today. But they don't say that, they're not going to admit that, and I wouldn't expect, in fact, wouldn't even expect them to admit through this cycle that there's a recession. So don't, right? However, I think it is very clear what we can see today is that some areas are actually weakened quite a bit. So that's it. Look, you got to see the interest payments gradually consuming the entire federal budget. The amount of money that's going into just paying off the debt is so excessive, and it's becoming more than anything else. Just think about like your mortgage, for instance, somebody that's like way over leveraged. Oh my goodness, how did the bank even give me this mortgage? And they're just like, that huge payment is the mortgage, and then they got this little bit left for everything else. And what if variable rate mortgage, oh my God, now suddenly all I'm doing is paying debt and more? I don't have any income anymore. It's just not paying anything off. That's what the US is doing right here today. That's what other countries are doing as well. And it never ends well. But you, the individual, you stayed until this part of the video. And so I have to tell you something. We know that they are going for an inflationary policy. That's established. There are the deflationists out there. It's odd, very odd. And I noticed there's a growing number of them going towards deflation. There could be, let me be clear, there could be instances of deflation and we get hit hard. But what is the response to that? It is a devaluation of the currency. We know their plans. We know this. So what do? Part of that is what I call right here, pillars of prosperity. So you have to, number one, be more self-sufficient, have your preparedness in place. Number two is about your income. You must increase your income at all costs. I have done this video right over here, which I'll pop up on the screen, which is all about earning extra income. I break it down, I get into it. You have to watch it. Click this video and I'll see you there.